It is in progress. Okay, so good evening, good morning, good whatever it is for you. Um, okay, some of you are coming in September, some of you are coming in January. Today is going to be a very brief, just want to speak to you. We're going to be talking about orientation, about schools, particularly about the schools. This is something which is very important, of course, because as you know, all our placements are at schools. All our placements are at schools, and they're normal day schools, with the exception of one school, which is a boarding school. Okay. That means if you don't really want to live with a family and you'd rather live at a boarding school, it's in the north of Spain, you can let me know. Okay, the advantages of the boarding school, obviously, you've got your room, you've got your bathroom, but you don't have the family thing. Okay, so in that sense, you have to be a little bit more kind of self-sufficient. All right, not expecting you to decide right now what you want, but something to keep in mind. We also, oh, don't know where that's come from. I'm going to get rid of that. Anyway, so the other school which doesn't offer family accommodation offers a shared apartment. That's also another possibility. So, if you want a little bit more freedom, you let me know if that's something which appeals to you. Okay, so two people to the boarding school, two people to the school which has an apartment. Okay, anyway, it's not a big apartment. They will give you some money for your food, of course. Okay, and you don't have to pay for the apartment. So let's talk about schools. Really, really important. Okay, whoops. But before we talk about that, um, I just want to go over our timeline, or at least, what's happening in September. This will be very similar in January as well. But we will be expecting you to arrive on Thursday the 17th. Okay. We've decided that our orientation, that we're not going to do it in Madrid. All right. We're going to do it in a quieter place, somewhere which we think is just going to allow people to settle in, lay back, and kind of, just kind of fit in and get a feel for what Spain is a little bit better. So we're going to be going to the wonderful, magnificent medieval city of Avila, which is about 100 kilometers from the north, to the north of Spain. Absolutely wonderful place. We'll get there in the evening. That's Thursday the 17th. Have some tapas, go out for a drink, have something to eat, and then orientation will begin on the morning of the 18th, which is the Friday. We've got a lot of things to talk about during orientation. We also have to go to the police station and register. That's a very simple thing to do. You just fill in a form, go in there with your passport. We'll go with you, and they'll give you a piece of paper to say you're registered. It's not a big deal. Okay. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have a walk around Avila, which you're going to absolutely love. Okay, you're absolutely going to love it. I say the Magic Castle. It's even better than a Magic Castle. Okay, it's the real thing. 19th, which is a Saturday, again, we're going to have orientation workshops in the morning, and then visit the city and have some tapas again in the afternoon, evening. Remember, this is going to be Spanish timetables. Okay, so Spanish morning, when we talk about morning, Spanish morning finishes at what time? Any ideas? What time does the Spanish morning finish at? I can't hear you. Anybody want to guess? What time does the morning finish in Spain? Could be 1 o'clock, could be 2 o'clock, could be 3 o'clock. Okay. The morning finishes when you have your lunch. And remember, a lot of Spanish people have lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All right. And there's a difference. Until you have lunch, you would say to people, buenos dias, buenos dias, good morning. Okay. And after lunch, you start saying to people, buenas tardes. So the afternoon might begin at 4 after you've had your lunch. Okay. Which means the evening meal, it's going to be at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Yeah, and that's when you start saying buenas noches. Buenas noches, good night. Anyway, there we are. So our orientation record check is going to be in the Spanish morning, and then seeing the Magic Castles, visiting the city and the tapas, that's going to be in the evening, por la tarde, okay? Um, well, late afternoon. So that will also give you a nice way of getting into the Spanish timetable on the Saturday before the Sunday, which is when you transfer on to the placement. Okay. So the idea is that you arrive, everybody arrives 17th on the Thursday, and then we go off, travel on to our placements on the 20th, which is the Sunday. Okay, so depending exactly where you're going to be. Okay, I want you to write to me, please, in the chat box. I want you, please, to make some suggestions. Okay, one of the things we want to talk about is when you're here next year, we want you to get together like twice a term. Yeah, to travel together. Okay, so we want to organize some trips for you. We'd like to organize some trips for you. And we've thought about places we'd like to go. We'd like to go with you for a 3-day weekend. So that would be arriving on a Friday, spending all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Transport's very good in Spain and very fast. So can anybody write down suggestions of places which you think we'd like to visit in Spain? Any cities that you know of? Barcelona, says Laura. Okay, it's a great place. Anywhere else? Barcelona, says Hannah. All right. Anywhere else? Valencia. Wow. Madrid, Seville, Galicia. Anywhere else you can think of? Was Alicante, possibly, Barcelona and San Sebastian. Well, make a note of all these fantastic places. What is the most famous university city in Spain? Do you know? Okay, let's have a look then. Okay. So yeah, these are the trips that we've got that we have planned for you. Okay. So if you arrive in September, okay, you're off on your placement and maybe 5 weeks into the program, we thought about going to Madrid for a couple of nights, 2 or 3 nights. So we will include accommodation. We'll give you the price and everything. Accommodation, a tour, okay, around the city. Madrid is a fantastic place for a walking tour. You don't need much else than that. And then you go clubbing. I'm not going clubbing. That's for you guys. All right. So we go to Madrid. December, we said Salamanca. Salamanca, which is the most beautiful city in Spain. Big university city. So a lot of partying with locals. Okay. But it's absolutely fascinating. We thought we'd do that in December before Christmas. Okay, a couple of nights there. In March, okay, remember back in January, we will be getting together with another orientation session. So if you are one of the people who arrives in September, you're welcome to come. And we won't do it in our villa, we'll do it somewhere else. So it'll be a bit of a surprise, okay? So we'll get together in January. And then in March, there we go, the Fallas in Valencia. Okay, so we'll organize a trip to Valencia. And then May, we're thinking about Barcelona. Okay, so we've got all these places. And then obviously, if you want to get together and you want to go down to Seville, you want to go wherever, there's our big question mark. Where are we going? Where else could we go? Well, which countries are next to Spain? If you think about a map of Spain, which is the closest country to Spain? France, that's true. Portugal, there we go. So Portugal is right kind of stuck in there. So at some point next year, Andorra, okay, but it's a bit small, okay, and very expensive. Portugal. So next year we want to organize a get together for all our volunteers in Europe. So people who are in the United Kingdom, in Poland, in Ireland, so everybody can get together. And we're thinking that the question mark here might be Portugal. So that would be in Porto, which is absolutely beautiful on the coast. Absolutely fantastic place. We're trying to fit that into our schedule and we will let you know, okay, as soon as possible when we've decided, okay? All right. So anyway, let's talk about schools. Right. Let's get it really, really careful and clear. Our agreement. What's the agreement? What are the schools offering you? Okay. They're offering you a host family. They're offering you a structured placement with a timetable. That timetable is going to be 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. Okay. No Fridays. Means Fridays you get together with other volunteers, you go to the gym, you wash your clothes, you go and do whatever you have to do, study some Spanish, but do stuff, really important, do stuff. Spanish, they're going to support you with your learning Spanish, okay? They will find somebody to do a language exchange with you. Okay, so you can trade in a bit of English or a bit of German in exchange for somebody who's going to help you perfect your Spanish as well. Okay, they're going to offer you a named person. That's a tutor. So that's a person who you know who to go to if you've got any kind of questions about school. If you've got any kind of doubts or problems with the host family or the place you're living in, you've got your tutor. They're also going to give you local information. This is really important, particularly things like transportation. Okay. You can find out a lot of timetables, bus timetables, train timetables on the internet. But sometimes you'll find that there's local bus services, maybe to the next city or next town, which don't seem to be published anywhere. Okay. And people, however, people there just seem to know, oh, yeah, of course, Sunday, 4 o'clock, here comes the bus from Madrid or from Burgos or some other place. Okay. So, particularly if you're living outside of the city. And the most important thing which they are offering you is goodwill. Okay. They are going to treat you really well. They're going to be really positive towards you, about you, and they're going to help you. They want you there. Of course they do. Now, what are you offering? Because this is a trade, okay? What are you offering? You're offering 16 to 18 hours of your week. Ideas, okay? You know how to do drama, you know how to do music, you know how to do poetry, some relaxation techniques, anything that you can bring in to help the kids practice and feel more confident in English is going to be very, very welcome. Okay? Spanish schools tend to be quite kind of book based, to the extent that teachers are kind of given a book at the beginning of the year and told you have to finish this book by the time that the kids move on to the next year when they move up. You know, so anything which comes in which seems to be a little bit more creative, particularly when it's speaking English, your ideas are very, very welcome. Your language, okay? We know you're going to learn Spanish and practice Spanish, but the one place you don't want to be talking Spanish is at school, okay? And people sometimes say, but how will I understand? hey, it's fine if you understand Spanish and you can tell that the kids are paying attention to you, that's excellent. But you're there because the kids want to speak English, and we want you to speak English to the kids. So bring some ideas about that, more ideas. We will send you a lot of ideas to add to ideas one and ideas two. Okay, if you like. Also, your goodwill. Okay, which means about coming in and being positive, having a great attitude, and being receptive to the children and to your colleagues. Okay, engagement, which means you might have an hour between class. Well, you don't kind of put on your headphones and like close yourself up. Sit in the staff room, talk to other teachers, see what they have to say. They will engage, they'll give you ideas, they'll tell you things you can be doing in the local community, be asking you how you are. Okay, and to have a really proactive attitude, which means when they say, school might say, well, would you like to come and participate in the sports club? Give it a try. If they say, look, we're having I don't know, a Christmas concert this afternoon, would you like to come? Well, say yes if you haven't got anything else to do. Okay. The more things you get engaged in, the more things they will offer you. So you'll be able to accompany excursions. Some of our volunteers get to accompany activity weeks, which they do outside of the schools. You get a week up in the mountains or something. One of our volunteers got to spend a week in London, for example, with her school as well, because she was so good and so positive. So those are the things. That's the agreement. Okay. On the ground, I'm going to tell you something really, really important. There is no money changing hands here. Okay. The school are not going to pay you. You're not going to pay the family. The family are not going to pay the school. The school are not paying the family. You're not paying the family. Okay, so once you're in, there's no transaction here. Right? Really important. That's one thing. And the other thing is the conditions of the program say the majority of your time must be dedicated to the volunteering, which means 4 days a week. Okay? You've got 7 days each week, but 4 of those days are at school, unless you have obviously public holidays, which we'll see in a moment. So to that extent, we want you to come with the idea that this is your job. So some of you have worked before. Many of you, in fact, having spoken to you, it's really impressive that so many of you have worked and you're saving money. But for the moment when you're here, this is your job. We want you to turn the tables then. You're not a student anymore. You are now a teacher, okay? And the kids see you as a teacher. And we want you to have that attitude. And it's not about discipline. Remember, discipline comes from the word disciple, doesn't it? Okay, so discipline is not about punishment. It's about being a role model, okay? And some people will be role models for the tough guys in class. And some of you will be role models for shy people in class. Some of you will be role models for people who are very extrovert and others very introvert. But be a role model. Let people see that it's good to be you, okay? But that they should be your disciples, okay? We want you to be their role model, okay? A little bit about the organization of Spanish schools. Yawn. Okay. Spain is made up of 17 different autonomous regions. Might be more. Okay. We've got the Canary Islands, the Balearic Islands, Madrid, Catalonia, Basque Country, and so on. This means that each region is responsible for its own educational policy and its own curriculum. Okay. Also means there are 17 school calendars. Okay. So in up here in Santiago, you might have some days which are national holidays, but only in this region. whereas in Valencia, the third week of March, for example, is all, you don't have any school at all. Okay, so each region has got slightly different vacations. You have to check this out before you make plans to travel with other volunteers. And also we have 4 co-official languages in Spain: in Galicia, in the Basque Country, in Catalonia, and in Valencia. Okay, you will be able to exist absolutely fine if you go to Barcelona, if you go to Valencia, if you go to Galicia, and even in the Basque Country. The only thing to take into account in the Basque Country, some schools will do their teaching in the Basque language, and this is very difficult to learn. Okay, it has no relation to any other European languages at all. Okay, so it's not like the difference between Italian and Spanish, and they're very similar, or French and Spanish, which are quite similar. Okay, so yeah, but don't worry. If you do go to the Basque Country, we will make sure that you're going to a school where you'll learn Spanish as well. Okay. Oh, there we go. There's another. This one of the schools said to me, "Tell all these volunteers, don't ever, ever, ever use your phone in class." Why is this? Why is this? This is because schools are having a massive problem controlling phone use in class, and therefore they're asking the teachers not to use their phones in class either. Okay, so children, they're banned in most schools, and therefore they don't want you whipping out your phone in class. So here we have the school year. The school year. This is in Castilla-Leon, where a few of you will be going. This is the area north of Madrid. If we look here, it's this very large, dark pink area. Probably the best area for learning Spanish. Okay. All right. And the other school calendar is for Valencia. So that's this region down here, where there will also be a cluster of volunteers. If you can see here, the beginning dates in September, both here in Valencia and here in Castilla y Leon, you can see there are different dates: 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th. Okay, so these are the dates that the different levels begin, if it's primary school, secondary school, or vocational training, or universities. They all start on different dates. This is why we want you to arrive on the 17th, which this year is a Thursday. Okay, and then to start at school not on the 22nd but on the 21st. Okay, this is from last year. Excuse me. And then you'll see that there are individual your public holidays. So the 12th of October, that's all over Spain. But in Valencia, it's also the 9th of October. Okay, November, the 1st of November is a holiday. This last year it was on a Saturday, so next year it will be on a Sunday, which means you'll also have the Monday free. And then you also have the 6th and 8th of December. Those are holidays everywhere. And then you can see the school vacations, the Christmas vacations, which is from the 20th of December until the 8th of January. Okay. Probably this year it's going to be until the 11th or 12th of January. So quite long Christmas vacations. And that's very similar whether it's in Valencia or Castilla and Leon. But you can see in Valencia they have one day less. Okay, we don't know why that is. And then we get into February. Again, in the north of Spain, 16, 17, you have those days off for Carnival. But in Valencia, those days are not holiday. But in March, you have the 19th and 20th, whereas in the north of Spain, you don't have those days off. So, I mean, it gets quite complex with these local holidays, and they will just change depending on where you are. Okay. So before you travel, you have to make sure that not before you arrive, before you plan to travel, make sure you know when the holidays are. Okay. Schools, we've got 0 to 6 years, which is nursery, what they call infantil. Okay, look for this word, CEIP, which are infant and primary schools. Most of you will be working with infant and primary schools, CEIPs. Okay. We've then got 6 to 11 primary schools. Okay, primary schools. Sometimes they're grouped together. What you will find in Spain is that children are introduced to books and homework very, very early. Okay, we have a couple of schools which are big on stuff like Montessori, learning by doing, by touching, by interacting with their surroundings. Those are very welcome. If you are that kind of educator, or you feel that that is your ambition, your vocation, then that's also a very, very good option. Okay, the Montessori, but only 1 or 2. And then we have from 11 to 18 years, secundaria or instituto, the instituto. Okay. Normally our students work up to the age, our volunteers work up to the age of 16. Okay, normally you don't work with higher groups, although it is possible that you can. Right? That is because schools tend to think that if you are 18 and then you're expected to work with students who are 17, you might not feel that kind of authority over them. However, if you feel confident or you're a little bit older, then I'm sure they will ask you to work with those students as well. Okay. And we've got 3 kinds of schools. Really important when you think, okay, we've got our public state schools. There is no faith-based affiliation, okay? In public schools, in state schools, there is not even religion. If there are religious classes or classes of religion, they are optional. Students do not have to attend. They can attend citizenship classes. Okay, the public centers, public schools tend to have very few extracurricular activities. Okay, so it tends to be you're there until 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock sometimes, and that's it. They're finished. The kids go home at 2 o'clock, and that's the end of their day. Are they happy? They're not happy, because then they're given lots of homework, right? And that is not nice for anybody. Okay, but you'll see that. The concertados are what we call charter schools, okay? Which means that they have a religious affiliation, they are faith-based, and they're very community-based. They tend to be really nice places to work. They are funded by the government, but they are managed by the teachers, let's say, or sometimes by a religious congregation. However, they are obliged to admit students of any faith, of any background. Okay? The good thing about the concertado or charter schools is discipline tends to be a little bit better. They're more community-based, so the students and families tend to identify a lot with the school, and there tend to be more activities going on. So there's probably going to be classes from 9 until 1, then there's a lunch break, and classes will begin again at 3 o'clock, probably until 5. Okay. You'll like them. I think you might find them easier to understand because of the structure. Okay. And then we have our private centers, which may be faith-based, which are always faith-based. Okay. So our private centers, I've said this before, they tend to be private Catholic schools, which are rather strict. However, they're in beautiful locations and they're very, very nice, and the families are wonderful. However, I would only recommend going to one of the private schools as a volunteer if you understand and have experience of the Catholic faith. Okay. If this is going to be a challenge for you, I would say don't. Okay. Because they're going to make demands on you, the way you dress and the way you act. However, the upside is like really nice families with big houses in lovely places to live. And so, you know, probably go horse riding and play golf and stuff like that. Okay. So those are the three kinds of schools. And this is just an idea of some of our schools. So look, here we are in San Jose, which is a concertado. There we go. It's in a place called Ontinyent, about 50 kilometers from Valencia City. It's a lovely place. About 50,000 people live there, and it's got 1,200 students. So imagine 1,200 out of a population of 50,000 is quite a lot. Okay, so it's provincial, very community based. Really, it's about bringing the families into the running of the school. Lovely place. And then we go up to the north of Spain, at Tolosa. Tolosa is right in the heart of the Basque country. It's only 35 kilometers from San Sebastian and the beach, a very cosmopolitan city. But this 35 kilometers, you get to Tolosa, really famous because of its carnival celebrations. But this is a Ikastola. Ikastola means it's a Basque school where all the teaching is done in Basque. And when we say, well, our volunteers would like to learn Spanish, and they say to me in Tolosa, not here. And they honestly say, it's going to be really difficult to find somebody to teach you Spanish. But it's a marvelous place, believe me. It's an absolutely marvelous place, really beautiful. And then we go, another contrast, here we go, a rural school in a place called Tavara, which is just next to Portugal. There's only 20 students in the whole school. Okay, it's a primary and infants education. Only 20 kids, there's about 6 teachers, and it's Montessori. So really creative way of teaching. But that's deep immersion in Spanish life, okay? It's a wonderful place and wonderful people working there. And then we go our San Francesc, which is also concertado, okay? A charter school similar in a smaller place. Cumbres, which is one of our private schools, okay? The meals are absolutely amazing, okay? 1,200 students, high discipline, high expectations. Wow, but people have been very, very happy there. And so on and so forth. Okay, so we've got different kinds. And then we've got Ciudad de los Niños, which is in Salamanca, state primary school, 250 students, typical, okay, on the outskirts of the city. So those are the kind of schools we're dealing with, okay? Mainly concertados, state schools, and then our private schools. Okay, what do you do? What do you do actually in class? Okay, we've said to the schools that we don't expect our volunteers to give classes. That means we don't expect volunteers to have the experience or the training to work with groups of 20 or 25 students. What we prefer is that our volunteers will work with part of the class. So during the class, you would be given a group of 5 or 6 students, 4 or 5 students, leave the class, and you'd be working in a quiet space, maybe in the library, doing structured speaking with them. Okay? And the speaking's got 3 parts. We'll talk about this. We'll see it further on. This is just a brief orientation. But that means giving the students the chance to speak English in a small group and interact with you. And so we've got scripts, okay? Scripts which can work at any age. But a typical conversation with a student or with a group of students would consist of 3 tasks. So first of all, asking them to talk about the weather. What's your favorite weather? What do you do when it rains? What do you need when it snows? What kind of sports can you do when it's very hot? Things like this, okay? So it could be the weather. The second part would be to discuss the content of a picture or a photograph. Okay. For a secondary school group, you'd say, can you describe what you can see? Okay, they will describe. It's the seaside, it's the beach, I can see the sea, I can see a shell. They might not know the word for starfish. They might say, I can see a fish. I can see a rock. I can see a mountain, some birds. Anyway, depending on their level of English, they're going to speak more fluently or not. What you're going to try and do is then elicit from them, why do people go to this place? Okay, what do they do here? And they should be saying, well, they go in the summer, they go to the beach because they like the sun, because they want to swim, they go with their families, they take a football, they eat, they have a picnic. Okay, what people do here. That's what the students should be telling you. And then you're going to develop the conversation. Can you tell me a time that you went to the beach? Can you tell me a time that you went to the beach? Give them some time to prepare, and they should be able to tell you. Okay, if they're 15 or 16, they should be able to tell you, last year I went to the beach with my friends because my parents always take us to a hotel in Benidorm, which is a famous seaside town in Spain. And I meet my friends and we play volleyball. And in the evenings, we go to the disco and things like that. Okay. Then extend, again, you extend the conversation. So you go there on holiday, fine. What kind of holidays do you like? Yep. Where would you like to go? What's your dream holiday? Again, this can then be developed, if you wanted to, into a writing exercise if you have a lot of time with them. Okay. And then another one would be my best experience on holiday. If you were working with very small children, it would be completely different. Same picture, but you'd be asking them, can you tell me the colors you can see? How many birds are there? What color is the rock? What color is the sea? Can you see a starfish? Okay. So it would be a lot more about identifying things that they can see. What color is the sand? And they would say yellow. And you'd say yes. Can you spell yellow? So same picture, but much more simple tasks. So those are things we're going to be looking at as the basic building blocks of what we're doing with kids at school. Okay. We're also going to ask you to do some presentations. We'll go over this later. You don't have to worry about it now, but a presentation, a kind of PowerPoint kind of presentation or video or whatever you like, slideshow, you and your world, your country, music and sounds of your country, animals from your country, the languages they speak in your country, your family. Okay? If you don't feel comfortable discussing your family or discussing any personal information, you can make it up. Okay, you can invent something, it doesn't matter. Okay, you can say this is my family and they see kind of Bart Simpson. Okay, you know, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so you can do whatever you like. Okay, that's really important. Don't ever feel compromised to talk about, sorry, that went off, to talk about things which you feel sensitive about. Okay. Some advice. Okay, plan your activities, speak to the teachers, research. Research the kind of students you're going to be having. How old are they? What's the best way to match the activity to what they are able to do? Work with groups, okay? Work with groups. Split the kids into 2 teams, even if there's only 6 of them. The 2 teams to talk about something, okay? And to make a list of things you could see at the beach, okay? Check material and equipment, particularly if you decide you're going to show a video, and particularly because you need the projector, and on that particular day you also need live streaming through Wi-Fi. Make sure that the school doesn't have a firewall, which you can't, and many do. You cannot access YouTube, for example. So you have to decide before, can I download this YouTube video which I want to use? Make sure you do it beforehand. If you're going to use a projector in class, make sure you've got the connection, the cables. Okay. All right. Short activities. Make sure your activities are short, 5-10 minutes. Prepare your voice. I've been talking all day, you can tell. How do you keep order? Spanish kids can be quite boisterous, okay? And it's good energy. It's good energy waiting to be used to interact with you. You need to harness that energy, direct it in the right way. What happens if you have problems? What happens if you have problems in class because whatever you were going to do, you forgot the material, you did not bring your memory stick, you did not bring, you cannot connect your pad, your phone, whatever you're going to use to give this presentation. Have plan B, okay? Have plan B, which is, you know, basically games, all right? Kids love games. So think about games you can play in class which don't need any material. The spelling bee does lots of other things. Okay. Let's have a look. Here's a volunteer. She looks quite happy. Let's see what she's got to say for herself. See if we can hear her. Yep.
I'm from New Zealand and I'm living in Viavlino in Lapiana, and I'm really enjoying it. It's beautiful, there's snow, it's warm, and yeah, it's really good. My family's amazing.
Say again.
I'm from New Zealand and I'm living in Viavlino in Lapiana, and I'm really enjoying it. It's beautiful, there's snow, it's warm, and yeah, it's really good. My family's amazing.
Okay, so Jenny was living, she was from New Zealand, she was living in Viablino. Viablino is a mining town right up in the mountains in the north of Spain. It's not near anywhere, really. It is really quite remote. However, it's the 2 schools there we work with have got amazing teachers who will include you in all their social activities and are really, really nice, kind people. Okay. So she had a great time there. Wow. And there on our right, we can see, now what was her name? It was Madison. Okay, Madison was from Australia. And you can see right here, if we make it a little bit bigger, she's giving, here we go, it says emu, platypus, so obviously dingo. So these are typical Australian animals. And of course, the kids are absolutely fascinated by her. No, she's brought some photos of these great big spiders, okay? Or the fact that, when you're living in Australia, when you go to the bathroom, okay, you have to look and make sure you don't have a snake in the toilet, right? So that was very, very simple. Look, that's her presentation. It's not very sophisticated, but it's got the kids' attention. Okay, so remember things to be very visual. And there we go. Okay, this is something completely different. There's Jenny and Madison. They were fantastic. Just something before you come. If any of you are thinking you want to prepare yourselves, there are online teaching courses which will give you an introduction into teaching English. Okay. I'll put this in the chat. Worth having a look, okay? They're like 60 hours or 120-hour courses. I think they're really good. They will give you an official teaching qualification, right? Which is pretty good. So it takes about 6 weeks to do the level 5 course. I'd say about 4 weeks to do the level 3 course. They cost, I'm not selling anything here. They cost between 120 and 150 euros, I believe. I think these courses are really good, right? So if you did want to do something in the summer before you come, which will give you, honestly, it will give you a teaching qualification which you can use and is recognized around the world because it is validated by the UK government. I think it's a good way of preparing. Okay, so if you're thinking in the future that you might want to travel to other countries and find a job, maybe casual job to support yourself, it's a very, very good option. So anyway, you have a look, see if you're interested. Okay, the TEFL Academy. I did this course myself to see if it was any good a couple of years ago. Okay, and I was really, really impressed with it. Okay, anyway, that's just me. They don't pay me any commission. I am obliged, as you know, if I did offer anything which gave us some kind of kickback, I would have to tell you. So, for example, we work with a phone company in Spain. If you wanted to buy a SIM card, then they give our account a 20 euro top up. But this is not the case. That's a referral scheme. Okay. Any questions then? That's all I've got to say about schools for a moment. In July, we'll be having a far more complete talk about schools. That will be in July. But anything you need to know, please. Any questions? When will we know? We will know probably in May, June, exactly where you're going. Okay. That orientation will be by mutual consent, probably within the first 2 weeks of July. I know that our German volunteers have got other things. Okay, they have their own training program in Germany at the beginning of July, so I'll make sure it does not coincide. Anything else we need to know? Where do we meet at the airport? I will let you know. Okay, so I will tell you, I will say, look, there's going to be a window to arrive. Okay, Avila, there are frequent trains from Madrid, but it would be nice if everybody arrived at the same time, and then we could all go together. All right. It's no bad thing to get a train, because it means that as soon as you get here, especially if you're traveling with other people, get to the station, get the train. It's very, very pretty, the route up there, and it gives you that immediate contact with Spanish culture. Yes, you will have to pay. You will have to pay for the trips, okay? Because we'll be booking accommodation and local activities. They're optional, okay? We'll always look for the cheapest option. Where will we sleep? Okay, where will the 3-day orientation? Yep, we are booking a hostel. Okay, it's a training hostel. If you are from Germany, coming through the VIA program, this is included in your program. Okay, if you're not, this will cost you approximately 200. However, this will include the transportation, your meals, and it will also include the transportation onto your final placement. Okay. The other thing which is important is if you can't, if it's just impossible for you to arrive on the 17th of September, don't worry. Okay. If we have to wait a couple of weeks for you, we will make sure that you are introduced to this school, but you won't have that orientation. Okay, no more questions. I'll give you 5. I'll give you 4, 3, 2, 1. It's getting late, 10 o'clock in the... Oh, when should we buy the flight tickets? Well, as soon as you have the confirmation from VIA, okay? I see you're from Germany, all right? Yeah, of course, you will have your mini jobs. Listen, when you're in Spain, because you're working at the school, you will have students and families coming to you asking for private tuition. That is how you're going to get your pocket money. Don't imagine you're going to work in a bar, a restaurant, because it's not appropriate, okay? Apart from the fact that youth unemployment in Spain is really high. And so those young people, young Spanish people, will be doing those jobs, not volunteers, okay? Do volunteers usually go home during Christmas holidays? I'd say 50-50. I'd say that people from outside of Europe don't go home, okay? They tend to stay. And there'll be other volunteers, and you can travel, and it's a good time to travel, especially to Germany, where it's really beautiful at Christmas. See some of the Christmas markets. So up to you. The German volunteers, maybe you'd like to invite, not to spend the whole of Christmas, but maybe, a couple of days to see some of the Christmas markets and stuff, or even get together. But families are not obliged to put you up at Christmas. A lot of Spanish families travel to see relatives and they get together. And it just might be that if they're going to another relative's home, it might not be appropriate, okay, to take somebody else. Can I use my iPad in school for the lessons? You definitely can, but you've got to make sure you've got the connections you need to make it work. Okay, in the private schools, they're going to be really high tech. In the charter schools, they're going to be somewhat, resources are not always that great in the charter schools. In the public schools, they've very often got fantastic tech, but nobody knows how to use it. All right, so there's a bit of everything. Is there a specific end day in December? Yeah, 20th of December. Okay, 20th of December. So you want to book your flight home. I mean, look, if you're arriving on the 17th, count 90 days. and that's when you want to be leaving. So it could be 17th of December, could be 15th of December. That wouldn't be a problem. 16th, there you go. Yep, no problem. 16th of December. Okay. You good? I'm good. It's good to see you. Good to know you're there. I might not see anybody, but good to know you're there. All right. We will be meeting again. We will meet again in April, towards the end. I hope you have a great Easter. Easter, remember, if you're in Easter, if you're in Spain at Easter, fantastic. A lot of stuff going on. Okay. A lot of stuff going on. Next week, wow. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of celebrations and so on. Quite religious, quite solemn, but well worth seeing. You say, well, I'm only going to do this once in my life, but I'm going to go and see the Easter week processions, and they're very interesting. Okay, let's just go back and see the good stuff, right? So we're going to Madrid and to Salamanca and Valencia and Barcelona, and let's see if we get that international group meeting in Portugal or somewhere similar. Okay, that'd be really, really fantastic. Okay. And 2027, remember, 10 years of new ventures in Spain. So we need to have a really good celebration together. Okay. That should say 27, of course. Okay, lovely. I'm off. I haven't had dinner. Look, I can't even say buenas noches to anybody. It's still buenas tardes, good afternoon or good evening, because I haven't had my evening meal. Okay, so 10 o'clock sounds good. I'll be getting the tortilla and the jamon serrano or some such thing out. Okay. There we go. That's it. You got any questions, any problems, you give us a call. Okay.